And we're going to do example 4. So sometimes they tell you something about the term and ask you to find it. Okay? The hardest one of these are, let's say I want you to find, we won't start with the hardest one. We'll do 2 examples here. We'll find the term containing, find the term containing x to the 9 in the expansion. Now I've got to make one here that actually has an x to the 9 in it. There. So find a term containing an x to the 9 in the expansion of this. How many terms are there? So the long way to do this is to say there are 10 terms. I'm going to expand this completely, simplify all of them, and one of them will have an x to the 9 in it, and I'll circle that one, and that'll be the right answer. You can do that. You can find all 10 of them and find the one that has the x to the 9 once it's all been simplified, and that'll be the right answer. But we can also use the formula to figure this out as well. The problem is we don't know the term number. So we put everything in that we do know into our formula. I don't know what k is, but I do know that n is 9, choose k. I know that my a is 3x squared to the 9 minus k, and my b is negative 2 over x to the k. So we put in everything that we know, and the only thing we don't know is k. And what we're going to do is we're going to temporarily ignore all the numbers and just think about our x's and the exponents. Because what we're told is that there's some term with some number in front that has an x to the 9. We just don't know which term it is. But if it has an x to the 9, and we ignore all the numbers in front here, do you agree that 9 choose something will be a number? So I'm going to ignore that. 3 to the power of something is going to be a number. So I'm going to ignore that. But I'm not going to ignore the x. Exponent rules here would leave me with 18 minus 2k. Agreed? Times by, and here I would have a fraction. I'm going to ignore the 2 on the top. I'll just make my fraction a 1 on the top, because that 2 would go to the number in front. And how many x's do I have on the bottom? I have k of them. If you used your exponent laws, what can you do if you have an x to the 18 minus 2k on the top and an x to the k on the bottom? What can you do with those exponents? You can subtract, right? Because when you're dividing things with the same base, you can subtract. So then I'm going to have an x to the 9 over here, and on this side I'm going to have an x to the 18 minus 2k minus another k, or an 18 minus 3k. What's k going to be? K has to be 3, because this has to equal, right? And if 18 minus 3k is equal to 9, the only way that can happen is if you have 18 minus 9. I mean, if you want to, you can set it up. I know that 9 has to equal 18 minus 3k. So if I subtract 18 on both sides, I'll get minus 9 equals negative 3k. Divide by negative 3, and you get 3 is equal to k. Once you find out k is equal to 3, what does that tell you? It is term number what? Term number 4. Because k is always 1 less than the term number. Sometimes they'll ask you which term. Sometimes the question will say find the term. When it says which term, you'd be fine to say it's the 4th term, and you'd be done. But if it says find the term containing, we're not done. Now we have to actually find out what term 4 was. So now what's term 4? Well, term 4 will be, is it 10? Or no, it's 9. 9, choose 3. Our A was 3x squared. 3x squared to the 9 minus 3 will be 6. And our B was negative 2 over x to the power 3. Nine choose 3 is 84. 3 to the power of 6. This will be 729x to the 12. Again, figure out each of these things separately. Negative 2 cubed will be negative 8 over x cubed. And once you've figured them all out separately and just have numbers, then you can go 84 times 729 times a negative 8. Negative 4, 8, 9, 8, 8, 8. X to the 12 divided by x to the 3 will leave you with x to the 9. And we found the term containing x to the 9. So these are more complicated, these questions that find a specific term. And they're more complicated especially when there is an x in both of these. Okay? I will give you, we'll temporarily just change this. Don't write this in your notes, but just to watch. I've seen the same question where this is just minus 2. And let's say they say, find an x to the 8. So if that's just a minus 2, this would be gone here. And as soon as there's not an x in both of those, you should be able to tell me what k is almost immediately. What's k? If you want to find an x to the 8. K has to be 5. What's the only way to get an x to the 8 is with this and this. So what does this have to be if this is x squared? This has to be 4. X squared to the 4 makes an x to the 8. And what's the only way this can be 4 is if k is 5. So some questions you will only have an x in one spot and they'll ask you for a specific term. And those ones you can figure out almost immediately. You don't have to go through this more complicated idea of trying to find out what k is by using your exponent laws. One more example. Find the constant term in the expansion of 5x cubed minus 2 over x to the 12th. And when you get to your test or to your quiz, some of you will put up your hand and you will say, Mr. J.R., what does constant term means? And I'll say, I told you in class you need to know what that means. And if you put your hand up in a test, all I'll be able to say is, well, maybe you can expand it completely, and maybe then you'll figure it out. Do you remember what a constant term is? There's no constant right now, but if you expanded it, there would be a constant. But what is a constant term? Let's go back to your grade 9 polynomials unit when you learned those definitions. Close, you're close, has something to do with, it's a one without a variable. A constant has no variable. Now, if a constant has no variable, the exponent of x would be to the 0. So sometimes you'll see the question say, find the constant term. Sometimes it'll find the term containing x to the 0. Because if you have x to the 0, that's equal to 1, and then you'll have a constant term. But a constant term is something without variables. So once you know that a constant term is x to the 0, I want you to try to find out using your formula. So n, 12, choose, you don't know what k is. 5x cubed to the 12 minus k, negative 2 over x to the k. Which one is it going to be? What's the value of k so that you get no x's? All your x's, in other words, will cancel out. Now, some people don't like last time when we solved it, we did the algebraic method. We used our exponent laws, we ignored the numbers in front until we figured out that k had to be 3 for us to get an x to the 9. Some people don't like that algebraic way. They're not very good at it, or they make a lot of mistakes. If you're not very good at that algebraic way, another technique that works fairly well with this is to try a number. Try a number that you think's not going to work. Pick a value for k. How many values of k can there be? Well, there's only 13 terms in this one. So there's not that many values of k. And if you try one that you think's not going to work, so pick a value of k, anyone that you think's not going to work. 8. So you pick 8. How many x's would be on the bottom of your fraction if you picked 8 for k? Can you see that there would be 8 of them on the bottom because it's only in here that you have x's on the bottom? And how many x's would be on the top? Well, this would be 12 minus 8, so this would be 4. How many x's would be on the top? Because this is the only one that affects the x's on the top. There would be 12. Does it cancel out completely? No. So 8 wasn't the right answer. But it should give you a hint. Should you try a number bigger than 8 or smaller than 8? Bigger. Because we need more on the bottom, right? So what do you want to try next? Try 9, okay? So we try 9, that would put 9 on the bottom. 12 minus 9 is 3. X cubed to the 3 would give us 9 on the top. And we found out that k equals 9 by guessing one number that was wrong, and then all of a sudden you knew that you had to go bigger, and we got it right away. That doesn't take very long, okay? The only thing you have to be careful on your final exam is some years they will say, find the term algebraically. Then they're going to require that you show all of these ideas and these steps to figure it out. You're going to say, I'm going to ignore the numbers in front, just think about the exponents, and use my exponent laws to figure out what k is. If they don't say that, and you like to just figure it out because it doesn't take that much effort to plug in one number that's wrong, sometimes you'll accidentally pick the right number right to begin with, and then you're like, oh, that was easy. And sometimes you can see it. It's not that much mental math that you have to do with exponents to figure out that k is 9. Now that we've figured out k is 9, we can find it's going to be term 10. What's term 10 going to equal? 12, choose 9. 5x cubed, 12 minus 9 would be 3. negative 2 over x to the 9. So we go to our calculator, calculate each one of these separately first. 12 choose 9. It's 220. Keep that in brackets. 5 cubed is 125. X cubed is x to the 9. Negative 2 to the 9 is negative 512. X to the 9. Now that we have just numbers, we can multiply them together. 220 times 125 times negative 512. And in these questions, you can get some very large numbers. And your x's all cancel out. This is a 0. Negative 14,080,000. It's a pretty big number. Okay, the questions that you can do after this one is number 9.